there's a kind of logical fallacy that runs through a lot of the community, where they think that whatever the top level players are doing at the moment must be, you know, the most functional, the coolest, the newest, most powerful jujitsu, which is not true. What they're doing is what works for them at that level of competition. And that, if you're talking about Gordon Ryan, you're talking about somebody who's incredibly talented at jujitsu. But what's going to work for the vast majority of people is different, and that's what we're interested in. So fundamental jujitsu you don't have to be young or strong or gifted in any way. It's the most functional, efficient technique that we found for everybody. And the key word there, when we talk about what is a fundamental in jiu-jitsu, the key word is probably efficient, but I use three. So the first one is what I just discussed. It's universal. So it's going to be the most efficient route for a 120-pound woman or a 260-pound man or a 65-year-old retiree or an 18-year-old college student. It's still going to be the most efficient way to escape a headlock, for example, right? If there was a more efficient way for us to escape that headlock, we would use it. We've nailed it. We think we have the answer. Here it is. That's, by definition, that's going to be the most efficient way for everybody. It's universal. Number two, it's repeatable. It's a repeatable experiment. It's not Gordon Ryan or somebody else that can do this in a particular, it's everybody. Everybody makes this work over and over again. We've seen it thousands of times everywhere. Just like anything else that's empirical, it should be repeatable. It should be a repeatable experiment. It's not an experiment of one where this guy can pull it off. It's an experiment that's over and over and over again. And then last but not least, and this is the thing we're looking the most for, it's what I'm always looking for in my job. What I do is I try and find the most efficient solution to any given problem in jiu-jitsu and pass that along to the SBG coaches and students so that they can teach that. And I'm constantly going back to the positions every year over and over again, and I'm looking at them again to see if I can refine it to a more efficient answer. I'm always doing that, and I will always continue to do that. That to me, that's what I feel like one of my main jobs is as the head of SBG. But what do I mean when I mean efficient? I mean as little as possible, but no less. We're looking for an answer that allows you to use as little strength, as little explosiveness, as little speed, as little risk as possible, but no less. And that's a measurement that is not just likely to lend itself, but is guaranteed to lend itself to continued refinement, right? And so, for example, the Headlock Escape curriculum that we've been talking about, I believe is the most efficient. It's universal, it's repeatable, most efficient way for someone to escape a headlock or to solve that problem, that physical problem around. When you're a brand new white belt, you probably are going to use a lot of pushing and pulling and energy and stuff that's going to be mixed in there to make the technique work. And as you progress and continue practicing, continue drilling, and you get better and better timing, you can use a lot less of that. You can get to the point where, you know, somebody like Coach Frankel can be very, very relaxed physically and escape the headlock even better than someone big and strong who's using a lot of energy. They're using the same technique, but Coach Frankel is able to use a lot less strength, a lot less everything else, because he's become more efficient with his timing. So that measurement of efficiency is going to continue to go deeper, both for us individuals as practitioners of the art, but also, you know, there's always little refinements you can make. I taught the Headlock Escape curriculum the same way I saw it the first time 30-something years ago. I'd been teaching it for 23 years, pretty much the same way. And then when Hickson came up, whatever it was, 4 or 5 years ago, and came to Portland, he showed me something on the Headlock Escape that made it twice as efficient. It's a tiny little detail that I've ever since I've put into the curriculum and passed along, but just makes a massive difference. It's related to connection. So from the outside, the technique looks exactly the same, but there's a detail related to how you connect to your opponent that makes that movement way more efficient. If Hickson hadn't shown me that, I may or may not have found it. I probably wouldn't have found it on my own. So although I will say, you know, the way we teach the headlock curriculum is the most efficient way, I always add that little that we know so far. I always leave room for somebody like Hickson or anybody, anybody else could all of a sudden discover a little detail or adjustment that makes that movement more efficient. And so efficiency is a measurement that's likely to admit to ever increasing depth, but that's the goal of jiu-jitsu. And the difference about Brazilian jiu-jitsu or Gracie jiu-jitsu and other fighting styles is the whole goal of jiu-jitsu is to try and use as little of those things I mentioned as possible. And the reason why we want to use as little of those things as possible is so that when we're outclassed in those things, when we're up against somebody younger, bigger, stronger, faster, our technique will be able to allow us to survive. And if we're relying on youth, speed, strength, then that's not going to work once you're outside your weight class. So the goal of a jiu-jitsu fighter is efficiency. The goal of jiu-jitsu techniques is to be efficient. And a fundamental, by definition, is going to be the most efficient way we know how to operate from that particular position within the given moment. And it's going to be a universal movement, just like there's no such thing as Canadian geometry. There's no such thing as a Japanese headlock escape, right? It's not bound by culture or time or geography, and it's going to be repeatable. You can come up with the same results. Some small woman you teach will come up with the same results. A football player I teach will wind up using and having the same results. And that's the beauty. That is the beauty of fundamentals. When I just got back from Atlanta and I taught a seminar, 2-day seminar. First day was guard passing, and the second day was about base. What is base? Every single thing I taught, everyone in that room can use. Not only can everyone in that room use it, everyone in that room was using it by the end of the seminar. Every single thing. There was one thing I taught that said, well, you might like this. This might be something some of you will do and some of you won't. That wasn't there. Everything was relevant. And that's because all I do is focus on fundamentals. And imagine think about the benefit of that in terms of time saved, in terms of the value of what the students are getting. Everything they're seeing and everything they've taught is something that they will be using, and probably, because fundamentals are generally mechanically pretty simple, 1 or 2 step movements, probably used by the end of the class.